Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band Trivex, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations Podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors for this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. All right, Mateusz, welcome back to Iblis Manifestations, man. How the fuck are you doing? It's good to have you on.
Hey, man. Well, thanks for inviting me for the second part. You know, I've been looking forward for this. You know, and yeah, it's good to be here. Good to see you, and it's good to have a lot more to talk about than the last time. You know,
I think so
and
too.
Whole
Yeah,
lot
absolutely.
of different stuff as well. You know.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah. So the first episode we did together, you were one of the earlier guests of the podcast for anyone who's listening right now. I think we recorded one, if I'm not mistaken, it was like April 2020, May 2020, something like that, so about 2.5 years ago from now.
2022.
2022, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2020 is not 2.5 years ago. As you can tell, it's already been a long fucking day over here.
Same here, man. Same here.
But yeah, I mean, you say it's been a long day for you. First of all, congratulations on the release of the of Vanishing, the mini album, I guess, if you want to call it.
Thank you. That's correct. It's a 27.5 piece of music, 26.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a piece which is sort of one composition. It's like a conceptual, not a song, but a long piece, which is divided on 3 parts, and yeah, we're excited because we've been waiting and working a lot, and it took a lot of effort. So it feels great to finally have it out,
It's exciting because obviously I know that you kind of went away for a while. and correct me if I'm wrong and if I'm making presumptions here, but you also, I think that the sort of what was happening with Blinded was also kind of parallel to a lot of personal changes that you were experiencing yourself. So just kind of take us through this whole process of how did you come about reviving the band, and how did you get to a point of actually finally getting to release some new music?
So I would have to start with explaining that, you know, this band, this creative child of mine, if as you may call it, uh, was very personal for me as well, and it was always reflecting, and I was always channeling what was going on in my life through that band and the music they were releasing and playing. And you know, things got complicated, and as many bands face stuff like that, you know, after 15 plus years of playing together and basically being in a marriage with 5 other guys, you know.
Mm.
You
I know
know,
what that's like, yeah.
yeah, you know,
Like marriage without sex, that's what being in a band is like.
exactly. But it's like, you know, to keep it quite straight, and you know, I would have to say that basically the band was falling apart for the past, like, between 2015 and 2019, that period. And that was the period when you know, after our original singer Patrick Zwolinski left the band, and we were working on the next album and looking for another singer, which was difficult, and we found somebody to work with finally. And you know, we were in a very tensed and toxic state, when it comes to the relationships in the band, and there was a lot of expectations and you know, obligations that we had to sort of, you know, fulfill. And
Was that to do with like a label or
yeah,
agents or whatever?
yeah, we had a contract for 3 albums, and we released 2 before Patrick left, and then there was another one scheduled. And you know, so we had a delay of like 1 year or something already. So that was kind of stressful, but at that point I was really motivated still, and doing what I could, you know, and like, you can say, even obsessively working on making this thing happen, and you know, not letting it die and go away, you know, because it was always so important for me. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's important to say that, because it probably was the beginning of my kind of breakdown, downfall, whatever you call it, that happened later on. You know, and that happened when we recorded the last album of Blinded, called Niewiosna, with a guest appearance of Nihil from Furia, and our really good friend that we invited to experiment with us on that record, which we thought by that time that is going to be sort of a beginning of a new chapter of that band, which was becoming more of a project, you know, not focused on touring a lot, more like just experimenting with guests and releasing you know, albums and playing a few shows a year maybe, and stuff like that. But what happened was totally opposite, and it turned out that this record was sort of a funeral for the old lineup and the form of the band. And yeah, well, we played the shows. The album was really different. It was in Polish for the first time. And,
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, lyrics that Nihil wrote for that album were just they were terrifying for us, to be honest. You know, at the first time we read them and heard his vocals, because he wrote the whole truth about what he saw when he joined us for that short period of creative you know, process.
So when you say
And
the
you
whole
know,
truth that he saw, exactly what do you mean by that? The truth about the band or the reality of the
yeah, the
world,
truth
or
about you know, the whole the whole dying process, like we were like probably just refusing to those kind of thoughts, and we didn't really think that way. And he saw what's going on. Basically, it's usually like that when somebody from sees a group of people from a different perspective, from the outside perspective, and is invited in. So he was like, we lived together in that like a forest, like a house in the woods, that we wrote this record, like 7 days in a deserted place in Poland, in Kashubia, close to the, it was the last house basically before like this wild forest stuff. And it was winter, and we just spent like 7 days there, and everything we wrote was like chronologically put on the record basically.
Right.
And so it was basically for the first time in this band's history, it was like a capture of the actual state of our emotions, our conflicts, and all that stuff and problems. So on top of that, Nihil wrote lyrics that were kind of an observation, and he included himself in it as well. So it was kind of like because we know each other so long, and so he was not just some guy, that joined us, and I think that something cracked, and in a good way. When I see it, when I think about it now, this was like the most important trigger that somebody gave me. I can only talk about this personally, So what he caused was me rethinking, or maybe just reflecting about what the fuck is going on with my life, and where am I going and stuff like that. And it basically, long story short, it just led to a major breakdown with like suicide attempts and a major loss of control, and like manic depressive long periods, and which I when you're in a state like that, you're not aware of what's going on. So
Speaking of which, how are you doing at the moment now? And also, how are you doing with sobriety? Because I know that's something that maybe last time we spoke was still a bit fresh, but how's life treating you at the moment in that realm?
The thing is, after what happened, then we quit. I mean, we put the band on a hiatus, and everybody sort of went their own ways to kind of take care of themselves and figure out what they want and what they need. And and my path was going and asking for help, basically, and just jumping into therapy, which was, when we were talking last time, it was actually still during my therapy. And this was like, this lasted for 20 months. And I was like isolated in a different town, and just focusing on healing and working on basically, restarting my life, figuring out what caused that downfall, and what do I need to change to do what I want, and live a life that is kind of like a good life. That
was
makes
there
me feel
anything
good.
in particular you learned from that period that you'd be happy to share with people? Maybe something someone can make a note of.
There's so many things. First of all, is I think for men, it's especially difficult to admit, that they might have some mental problems, and that need to be taken care of, and that acceptance, that how to put it, I lost the word right now, but it's just like a decision, like I don't fucking care what people think. I need help. It's nothing bad about. There's nothing bad about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If you want to be alive, you have to ask for help. And this happened to me like after losing control and basically surviving a major suicide attempt, and that fact that I woke up and I was alive kind of triggered me to. I was like, maybe there's a reason why I'm still alive. Maybe there's some stuff I can do still, and and basically, it's hard to tell like a short or concrete advice, for anyone, because it's always different with people. Depends on the character and personality, but my personality works in advantage, you might say, because when I decide to do something, I'm like 100%, focused on it. So this led me to this 20 months of therapy plus sobriety included, and and after we were like talking with my therapist at the end of that process, which, I mean, there was no real end, but that intensive period of healing and working with her was kind of done. And she said that wise words and important words for me at the end, that basically she has a sort of impression that my problem was based on not on addiction, but on the not being aware of a mental problem, which is leading to overusing alcohol or drugs as medicine, like self-medicating. So that was interesting. That was interesting because she noticed that I was able to just stop drinking and smoking weed and doing drugs just like that, when I made that decision. And this was like the major subject that we talked about when it comes to addiction, that it's kind of like weird when I started taking meds and go on treatment and working on therapy. There was no problem with alcohol. Suddenly it just disappeared for 20 months. So this 20 months were like straight sober. Nowadays I don't get shit faced. I'm having a beer or two sometimes, in like a social meeting or whatever. But it's the difference is that it's not the purpose of it is not to auto-destruction or like self-medication or anything. It's just like, I like a beer. I don't drink hard liquor or anything, or do drugs for that. That's important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on meds, all the time. So since they kind of, that diagnosis was bipolar, which could be a lot of things. I'm not really fixated on sticking to that diagnosis, but since I'm on the meds and I follow the rules and stick to it, I feel much better. So coming back to your question, right now I'm probably in the best place in my entire life when it comes to how I feel and the creative side. And of course there's always problems, and but when you learn the lesson, and I learned so much doing the therapy that dealing with certain problems is a different story right now. So I'm like, I'm maybe not like a super cheerful, super happy dude, but I'm creative and I'm working hard on doing what I love and working with people I love.
That's great, man. I mean, first of all, it's awesome to hear that. I'm very happy for you. Because I think at the very base of it, I'm just happy that you're around, man. I know that you obviously went through a lot of difficulties and things like that. So it's really refreshing. It's nice to hear something like that. That I guess identifying the problem seemed to have been what it took to be able to kind of get over that a little bit. It's interesting, by the way, what you're saying as well, because I have spoken to friends of mine a few years ago who used to suffer from ADHD. Well, still do, but that was again something that, even though when you think of ADHD, you don't think of this horrible like mental illness or depression or whatever, but then that's also something that can then lead to abusive behavior when it comes to certain types of drugs, and different things, and it's just how the dopamine in your brain works, and how you find these things that you can actually get fixated on and kind of obsess over, because I think that there's a lot of us, whatever it is you're diagnosed with or even not, I think that those of us who gravitate towards this particular music style, I think that, I'll talk about myself, for example, to me as a kid, I could never focus on anything. I never found anything interesting enough. But then every now and then I'd find something and I'm like, ooh, what's this? And then it would be music. Or when I was like 9 years old, it was pro wrestling. And then you become totally fixated. You know everything about it. You're just completely all about that life. And it's like a blessing and a curse, but so many of us go through life without even realizing that that's how we operate, and not knowing that and not knowing how to control it can be problematic in a lot of areas. And there's a lot of ways where it can be problematic, such as the example of consumption of alcohol and certain drugs.
Yeah, but I think with as far as my experience goes with people I know with ADHD diagnosis is a little bit different, because there's a lot of overthinking there, and like not being able to focus actually on one thing, and it's more like just this never-ending cycle of thoughts and obsessive thoughts. But I think that there's a difference between how I feel in because that's the only thing I can talk about, because for me it was always music, and it was maybe not obsessive, but I was fascinated in the teenage years and everything. I was like an encyclopedia of lineups of bands, and lyrics, and
every Samuel lyrics ever.
Exactly, exactly, like singing Blood Ritual lyrics in my room instead of doing homework or whatever, and
I hear you, man.
I mean,
I hear you.
But it's it's the thing is that I when you're getting manic about something, because manic is different, there's different types of manic states, and the ones I had that led to the breakdown were very long ones, and they were sober actually. It was like something in your body and mind keeps you awake and like hyperactive, and then you're like a god, basically you can do anything, and I was like working 16 hours a day, and and then waking up and being full of life, and going, because I found new job that was during COVID with the amplifiers that I was working with, and there was quite some interest, and I had some success over there, and that was like a trigger for that manic state, because I never experienced anything like that. It was something new, and I became obsessed, for months, and it drained me from like physically and mentally, and then when you're exhausted in that way, then your body and mind wants to have a break finally, and it's like it feels like you're standing on fucking Mount Everest or whatever, and you're gonna fall if you let it go. So that was the moment where cocaine showed up, basically, because I had so much work, because I organized myself so much work, I made so much work around me that I couldn't wake up at that moment, when I was so drained and exhausted. I couldn't fucking pick up the phone, to take care of work. So that exhausted, obsessive brain was like, hey, there's cocaine, and that was fucking crazy, because it led to like overusage of cocaine for like every day, basically, and it was not party reasons, it was work reasons, just to stay awake, and that kind of that was like the nail to the fucking coffin, because it just I lost it basically. I'm not afraid of saying that I lost it, and and it wasn't even me. It seems like a movie, you know, when I think about the suicide attempt, for example, you know, it feels like it was a movie. It wasn't. It was a character. There was someone else basically. So
When
yeah,
you
I mean,
mention about cocaine, I mean, I have a lot of, I of course have experience of the drug first and foremost, but it's something that I haven't even gone near for a few years. Luckily, I never even had an issue with it. Even at the times that I did use it, it was sort of like, it was very moderate. It was sort of like whenever Trivex was playing a show, or not even that, sometimes, like going out with friends and stuff, or like someone from your favorite band kind of offers you something. This was kind of like, I was into it, but I think from a philosophical level, I've developed a huge problem with it. Okay. Well, there's one thing about cocaine, and anyone who's ever used it before will know this, and that's probably most adults anyway. So I think most people have experience of it. If you don't, good for you. Don't go near it. It's bullshit, if you ask me. But I think that it gives you the illusion of productivity. Meaning
yeah,
what? So when you take it, you think that, oh yeah, we're doing something, because it gives your brain that feeling of, like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, and it makes you like really talking, blah, 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 blah. You say all these things, and then you have all these conversations that feel meaningful, that feel like there's something behind them, but there's nothing to it. It's just going to your brain and finding whatever the switch is for passion, switching it on, and then just waiting for it to completely burn out of fuel, and then you need another line to switch it back on again. But eventually you hit burnout, and then it's almost like you struggle to have passion, you struggle to have focus, you struggle to have determination without it. And of course, there's a scientific element to that which relates to dopamine. But on the other hand, I think it's an extremely tragic fucking drug, and I think that that's why people gravitate towards it, because it also has this kind of a cultural thing attached to it, like, oh, you're kind of cool for doing this, and I think it's the most uncool thing ever nowadays, and
yeah.
I
I mean, I know what you're talking about, but at the same time, my experience and especially what I understood while analyzing all this through therapy and all these conversations about it, uh, you know, I realized that I was using weed when I was manic,
hmm,
to bring myself down, to numb myself, and like, okay, you're going too fast, And then when I was depressed, I was using cocaine because without it I couldn't do anything. Because that's how, when you're bipolar, it's so black and white, it's either that or that, So I was trying to level it with what those drugs do,
But if I
Uh,
may also say, and this is by no means I'm taking away from your diagnosis or what you're saying, but I think even if you're 100% healthy person and you're perfectly fine in your mind, if you're doing that same thing with cocaine and weed, you're going to get fucked up regardless. You're going
oh
to
yeah,
develop mental issues, even if you don't, but then if you have them pre-existing, then that's only going to exacerbate it.
oh yeah, definitely, because it affects your body and mind, So there's no way around it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think it's really important to talk about these things, and the reason why I always like to gravitate towards these kind of topics, which I think between us, with our own experiences, and obviously, there's been a lot of kind of things that we've been through, but I think that generally speaking, it's important to talk about these things, because they're kind of like they're so accepted in this style of music, or in, like, I think culture
You
as a
know,
whole.
you just made me think about what you asked before, and there's a very important aspect to that previous part of my career with Blinded, and with the group of people that I grew up with, and we started that band, and we played and created all these records together for almost 20 years, and there was always party,
Mm.
attached to it. I mean, and at some point, when we got a bit more mature, it was kind of attached to it no matter what, So So basically, almost every rehearsal that we played, which was 2-3 times a week, for years. So there was always that aspect to it. So we kind of we were existing in this kind of bubble that we told ourselves that we are doing the music better when we are under influence of weed, especially, that it opens us up and stuff like that. Of course, to a certain point, it does that, when you do it sometimes and like, give it a, when you're like stuck, you hit the wall with some arrangements or whatever, you need to like back up, relax and just get into the whole emotional baggage that you're channeling through music, right? And weed was just this relaxer, and just like we were just jamming and like finding riffs that way for playing for hours and stuff like that. But when it goes like this for years, it's wrong. It just becomes a routine, and that's what happened with that band. We kind of burned out creatively, and there's members leaving, and there was lack of communication and honest conversation, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody right now, because it's just how like group psychology works,
Sure.
And I guess we all experience it in different ways, when it comes to family or friends, or creative group of people that we work with. So yeah, that's an important thing that we're talking about here, because that's something that changed for me, because I couldn't write music anymore after New Vyosna, and I was drained. I was just like, I left the guitar. I didn't have any ideas. I didn't really feel like, I didn't have anything to say, basically. I just, I kind of disappeared, in general, in body and soul, and in therapy there was this period that we started talking about rebuilding my creative relationship with the instrument, because that was a block. There was a block that I had. I couldn't go through it, because every time I wanted to write music, there was these hungers, showing up, because it was so attached to it. So my therapist just, she was like, how about you do something you never did with the guitar, first, before you start writing music, something that is not challenging creatively, And the first thing I realized that I never played cover songs, basically, in my life until that point, at least maybe a few in my life, but never the whole songs. I was never learning the entire songs of other bands. I was learning maybe some riffs and stuff like that that I liked, And
is that when you
that
did a
was it.
cover of your very own "No Sympathy for Fools"? If I remember saying that.
Yeah. That was that period. That was the series of videos I was doing and posting. That was the kind of routine we incorporated to my therapy. Like, it was happening every day. Basically, I was waking up and thinking about a song that came to my mind, and that was kind of a song that I thought I could learn quite quickly and record it. And that was like another part that I was learning to the home recording, and like, working with Logic, and basically producing music, on my own. So there was two advantages to it, and it was so much fun, because I was just, thinking of a song, like, I think it started with Entombed Wolverine Blues, and and then there was Killing Joke, there was like, all kinds of Devin Townsend, there was Gojira, and there was Morbid Angel, and Death, and Dissection, and Mayhem, and Dark Throne, and stuff like that, and then Killing
All the good
Joke,
stuff.
Deftones, like Neurosis, those a lot of like wide spectrum of songs, and that was like the key thing for me that unlocked me, and after that period, I shortly after I started working on new music, and that was also the time that Patrick, the original singer from Blinded, he saw those covers. He called me and he was like, "Hey, how about I sing on one of those covers?" And I was just laughing. I told him I just finished that series, and so how about we maybe think of making some new music together, And here we are.
Amazing. So Patrick is on the most recent EP.
Yes, I mean he joined the what was supposed to be a new band with a different name before that, before I wrote the album, and then shortly after I had this this kind of like I got really inspired. Just woke up one day, and for 2 weeks I was writing music every day, and I wrote like 75% of what became the big album that is still not released. And that was like the point where people that I shared it with, they told me like, but it sounds like Blinded, man. Like it sounds like the next could be a next Blinded album. And I was like, no, that's over. I didn't even want to think about that because it was just in the past, and I just got out of it, So, but then I started thinking, fuck, but Patrick is on, it starting to make sense. And at first I contacted the members of the band that was there with me till the end, which was Konrad and Bartosz, and it turned out they weren't really interested, and that music didn't trigger anything, so after a few months of waiting from my side, I was like, I'm not gonna wait. I'm just gonna continue with a modified name, because they didn't like me keeping the same name and the social media and everything. I asked them, and they were like, no. And then I thought, this is not something I want to argue about, and that's not the beginning of a new chapter that I want to have, by having a conflict, over a name. So quickly I was just like, okay, so we're announcing that Blinded is over, and I just started the new natural continuation of Blinded because it was me and Patrick on board, basically, and because the music was too close to the character of Blinded albums, So yeah, that's how it happened. And Patrick is in the band, and we are the only members of the original Blinded,
That's it's interesting. So just for the sake of technicality as well, so you said you and Patrick are the original members of the band.
Yes, we are.
And did you say that the other gentlemen that you spoke to, did any of them come up with the name, or?
No, I came up with the name. But the thing was that Patrick left the band in 2014, and he was not in the band for the next years. And so sort of what the last incarnation of the band was, it was me, Konrad, and Bartosz. So the drummer and the guy that was doing all the synths and stuff like that, So so that was the last incarnation of the band. And yeah, of course I could put it on that way, I could be strict and just say, I'm going to do it anyways. But it didn't feel right, to be honest. It just didn't feel right, and I even thought that it's for me, for my sake of my good health mentally, just modifying that name by adding the number that is quite important for me in general and connected to everything, was just felt like, okay, this is kind of like just making this line, cutting off from the past, from that toxic ending of the previous band, and the new start was so refreshing and different from what was there.
Sure.
So I kind of needed a little bit something else, you know. Yeah, of
That's
course
fair enough.
there was the fact. The only factor was like, yeah, but we will have to rebuild the following, you know, on social media and stuff like that. And I was like, well, fuck that, you know. I mean, people that know us, it's not like Blinded became a super big band, you know, ever. It was kind of big in Poland, you know, but it wasn't like, you know, we had millions of followers, you know, that we're gonna lose suddenly. That would probably be a different story because we would have, you know, the whole machinery behind a band that size, you know. So, but we're talking about, you know, sort of like 15,000 followers, you know, on Facebook and stuff like that, you know. So I was like, I want to have my head clear, and we'll see what people say, you know. If they accept it, it's gonna for them, it's gonna be whatever they want, you know. So,
And what's the response been so far?
oh man, it's overwhelmingly good. Really, I mean, it's I'm really proud of what's happening, you know. And like, it took a long time till that moment, so it really feels exciting. And how people respond for the new music is, I mean, it seems like they got what they loved the most in that band before, you know, with more, you know, with more free sort of spirit, you know, to it. No limitations and stuff like that. When it's going heavy, it's going really fucking heavy, you know. and
Yeah.
and you know, and how Patrick sounds. I mean, obviously people missed him in the, you know, in the last period of Blinded. So I think that I would have a bigger problem if Patrick wasn't on board. That would be a different band, you know. But his voice is so characteristic that, you know, it just, together with the riffs I wrote, and it's just, you know, natural continuation of what we were doing 10 years ago, you know.
Sure thing. And I have to say as well, because obviously I've had the privilege of listening to some of this material quite a while before it came out. Thank you, of course, kindly for sending them to me. You know, it's been difficult keeping quiet about it because you guys really did a great job. And
Well, thank you. And you
what
are
I
one of the people I trust, you know, and like I value your opinion. So, you know,
thank you, man.
it was great to have you. It was great to have you as this fresh, you know, dude from a different perspective, and you know, and you're honest. So that's why.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate that. What I quite liked about it was that how successfully you've been able to merge all these different, I don't want to say influences, but different takes on the genre, you know, because it's very much, you've got a bit of everything, you know, like you said, you know, you've got moments where it's sort of clean and spaced out. And I don't want to compare it to Catatonia, but that's kind of like genre-wise what it kind of like what you can maybe connect it to. But then you've also got other moments that are just so heavy and so dark, and you've got the dissonant chords, you know. So you've got everything in there, and it somehow, some way merges in really well together, you know. And I think it's very journey like, you know, or at least in the case of the EP, you know, I think you kind of pointed to this earlier. It's very much journey like, and I think it's cool because to me it's honest music because it's not just trying to sell you something. It just says, here are all of our raw emotions, kind of like fine tuned like that, you know, and just decorated in this beautiful way. Here, have it, go through it. You know, it's kind of a roller coaster, which I think, you know, like you said, is very personal music, right?
Thank you, man. It's very, very nice to hear that. And I mean, what you're describing, I think it's the fact that we're not really thinking when we're creating. You know, we're telling a story. It's always a concept. You know, it's never songs. It's I always have this. When I work on music, it's like a flow. It's a stream of emotions and thoughts and ideas all together. At nowadays, it's a short period of time usually when I feel that I have a vision sort of, and it clicks with like some ideas that want to come out musically, because there's a sort of a story that is born in my head without words. It's not like a specific thing, but it becomes this kind of a cinematic story, basically, because the moods, they are talking about different places, mentally, or where we are, where what's happening around us, at the moment. So it really is important for me, and I know now that it was always important for me not to overdo writing process, and that's what we were doing in the past with Blindead. It was endless rehearsals, and like struggling, which was probably needed. I'm not saying it was bad, because I learned a lot from it, and I guess what I understood, what's the most important thing I understood, and I incorporated into the creative process right now, is that it's not rehearsals. It's like, I feel that this is the time I want to write something, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I just have to do it, and it's like with the album, it was 2 weeks of like just me sitting for the first time in my life, just writing music entirely, with, looking for rhythms and, writing synths and bass and stuff like that, and thinking of the flow, basically. And then I invited the rest, because the big album was made a little bit differently than Vanishing. That was me writing after that therapy thing, and it was the first time I started writing. I had no idea what it's going to be, but then when we realized that we were building a band, at some point everybody else was invited to take this to the next level, but it was on the sketch, on sort of like a pre-production that I did, then when
it's
we went
interesting
to the studio,
what you're saying, not to interrupt you there, but I really want to kind of just emphasize on this for a moment, because and I think that Polish bands in particular are kind of prone to this extremely kind of methodic approach of over rehearsing, overdoing, being overly perfectionist kind of thing, and I think that you need to leave room for the magic to happen. Like, I think over rehearsing is definitely a thing as a band, because I think that you kind of want to have a flow, you kind of want to have a magic. It's not something you can really fake or force, and I think when you force it, that's kind of like when you have issues. And there's definitely a point to crossing that threshold of tolerance as a group of people, as a band, to see, okay, how far can you take this? But I also think that there's value in giving each other space to then come back into it and be able to really express yourselves organically. And it's a little bit like, I think performing music is a lot like having sex. And I think that, think of it like this, you got a girlfriend and then you guys are at it 24/7. And that's okay, especially in the honeymoon period. That feels nice. But also, you're jizzing all the time. So your testosterone's actually coming down. You're losing a lot of your minerals in your body and you're getting weaker and your eyes don't see as well. You got to squint your eyes. We've all been through it, happens to the best of us. But, and then you compare, and then that kind of like becomes sort of, it kind of just loses the magic just a little bit. But then you compare that to when you're focusing on connecting with someone and then maybe you haven't seen them for like a week or so, and then you're talking, and then when you get together, you make some magic happen, and I think that
there's something when you give space, and like kind of float around, do your thing, then you have something to talk about, actually.
Exactly.
Like, and especially with the bands, it's like if you're doing something for many years in the same way, it's sort of, you just fall into this loop, the routine, which is good when the band is kind of gluing together, and like, you kind of want to become better and more, tight with each other and stuff like that. But there's a point where you reach that, and that's the point where everybody should just fucking relax, you know, and like, you know, let's not do it in the same way, because we already know how to play. We're good enough to play, you know, and so we don't need to practice endless hours, you know, and stuff like that, because it's not productive. It's just exhausting, and you know, it makes you want to spend less and less time with each other, basically. And
so one rule that we've had, so this is a rule that I set out, maybe we've been, I think, doing this for about 4 or 5 years now, maybe even longer, actually. I can't tell for sure, but this is a rule that, you know, I set out for Trivex, and then all of the guys agreed on it, you know, and then it's worked out really well for us, is that we never rehearse on the day of a show, or more important, even the day before. We don't do that. The closest we'll rehearse to a show is a week before. That's actually the sweet spot for it. So it's like you got let's say a weekend show, the weekend before that, or maybe 2 weekends before sometimes, that's the perfect time to rehearse, because then you kind of get to go back from it, you get to reflect on the performance, you kind of get to build yourself back into it, and then when the show comes, there's enough anticipation that when you go on stage, you have all of that pizzazz left in you.
It also depends on how the band works, you know, because if you're all in the same place, then you can rehearse anytime, you know. But when it comes to this band, it started already as I mean, there was conversations that we had in the beginning, and I was like clear that we are all in this group that I managed to gather and invite to this band, you know. Everybody is so good. Like I'm overwhelmed by you know, especially Roger Oyerson from Catatonia. That, you know, he's one of the best guitar players I ever met in my life, and on top of that, he's like a multi-instrumentalist and great singer, and he plays everything basically. So, you know, because we only had one show so far, that was a year ago at one festival, and what we did, it was like a week before the show, because also everybody's from different places, you know, like different cities, different countries and stuff like that. So to bring everybody, it made sense, you know, to do this as close to the show as possible. And that was actually the first time we all played together.
Oh, right. Oh, wow. That's taking it even way step further, right?
Well, it was like a week before, and I think Roger came like 3 days before the show, something like that. And we, the last day before the show, we took it easy, you know. But the previous days were kind of like, this was our only shot of becoming a band, you know. So that was exceptional. That was a bit different, you know. But it's still, you know, it proved, because when we played that gig, it was so good, you know, even though maybe we all didn't feel so prepared, but it turned out really good and people loved it, you know. So you know, when we were talking about playing shows in January now, there's gonna be some shows in Poland, like quite big ones. We're gonna play. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but when we know, just like off the record now, when we know, we'll decide if we use this information that I will say right now. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. I'm I think for the sake of it, it'll probably be late October, if not beginning of November.
Oh, okay, that's good. Then I can talk about it.
Let's go.
So it's going to be announced soon. So it's fine. So in January we're going to play 5 or 4 shows in Poland, like a co-headline tour with Obscure Sphinx, which is coming back as well, and we are going to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Blindead's record called Affliction, which was like a sort of like opus magnum for this band, and it was sold out years ago and never re-released. So there's going to be a re-release on CD and vinyl for the first time. and and it's gonna be it's gonna come out like probably a few weeks before that tour. And on that tour, we're gonna play the whole record of Blinded Affliction, plus the new stuff that we just released, and maybe something extra as well. And this is gonna be it's gonna be exciting, because this new lineup is gonna give some justice to that record for sure, and people really want it, as far as I know. So it's a good occasion, 15 years, and no other version of this band is existing, or no one else will play these songs. So we were like, well, this is a good idea, basically, So yeah, so we're like, this time we're working a little bit differently, because in the meantime we wrote Vanishing, and we wrote that material because our big record got on hold due to reasons that we don't want to dig in. It's just label budget stuff as usual, and it kind of got us on hold. Yeah. But I think it was a good thing, because it triggered us after a year of trying to make this thing happen. I was just like, let's just write some new music and release it before that record, so we can maybe create more budget for that big album, since that's the problem, because we faced that problem, so that led to me and Paavo, the drummer, which plays Ultimas right now as well.
Okay.
And Paavo and I went to a house.
Played drums in Ultimas?
Yes, he replaced Flo Monnier.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
I
yeah,
must have seen him just recently. Then I don't know how long he's been with the band, but I'm sure because it's not been long since I saw Ultimas. I think I saw him at Inferno, actually, where you and I met.
Yeah,
just recently. Yeah,
he played there. He played there for sure.
Cool.
I met him there.
Cool.
It's funny because we meet in the different parts of the world, actually, like Mexico sometimes, and sometimes Oslo, and we almost never meet in Poland, So, but then last year in December, I was like, let's go for like a weekend, just the two of us. I had some ideas, very basic ones, and let's see what happens. Let's write some music, not wait or not, just complain about the whole situation and and give up and whatever, let's be productive and try to move forward and see what happens, and it was amazing, because this was the first time both of us worked together, like in one room, and it was 5 days, and we wrote this whole thing during those 5 days, and it was so easy, and he was so he impressed me so much, because he's not only a drummer, he plays guitar and writes music on his own, so we kind of like we found each other, after years, and we've been talking about playing together since 2006 when we met on the first tour that we did, like, was Blinded. So yeah, me and Paavo, we wrote this thing, and since other guys like Roger and our guitar player Maciej moved to New York, and this wasn't planned, basically, so it all was down to the three of us that are in Poland, which is Patrick, the singer, me, and Paavo. So that's why the three of us are on the pictures promoting Vanishing, because we did that record and invited a couple of guests to help us out, like JB, the bass player from Duel, and Stefan Azam from Crown, and his new band is called Your Inland Empire. He's also my good friend. He's doing sound for Abbath and
cool.
Destruction and stuff like that.
JB from Duel, is he the guy that also used to play for Devil's Blood?
I don't think he played in Devil's Blood. I think the drummer played, the old drummer of Duel played in Devil's Blood.
I thought a couple of them did, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, maybe the guitar player, but JB played in Aborted before.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And a couple of other bands.
Hell of a stretch, genre-wise.
My dog shows up, and and there's some interest here.
Your dog. That's fine. I'm surprised my cats haven't showed up yet. Normally they're coming in. They've been making a lot of appearances on the podcast lately. How old is your dog?
But and we also invited one of my idols for like early 90s, mid 90s. One of the first black metal bands that I heard was. Are you good?
Yeah, man. All good.
Yeah, one of the first black metal bands I heard was Christ Agony, this Polish band that recorded amazing albums in the 90s, and then me and Cesar, the leader, we became friends when I was in Behemoth, and then it turned out he's a fan of Blindead. So
that's cool.
It also was just a natural, kind of domino of things, because he was present when we were writing this material for Vanishing, since we were doing it at the friend's house in a region called Mazuria in Poland, and he lives there, and he just heard we are there, and he showed up and he heard what we were doing, and I was like, you know what? I grew up on your music, and you inspired me to do this shit, and like now you tell me you like this, so I think you should be a part of it as well, So the last quote in the lyrics of Vanishing is from Nietzsche. And it's the snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. So I was like, Cesar, you're gonna sing that, and I'm gonna do the backing vocals under it. So that's what happened, and I mean, this whole thing turned out to be such a good experience and very important experience, and it kept us going, in the meantime when the album is being sorted, So we decided this is going to be a sort of a prequel, for that. And it also, the most important thing that it popped out was that the creative process was so free, so there was no stress around it and stuff like that. So, and there was creativity and everybody just opened up and did the best parts of their lives. So I'm really happy about it,
That's awesome, man. I think it's sounding fucking great, and obviously, so the EP is out now, or the mini album, whatever you want to call it, the prequel, should we say, Vanishing. So that's out now, but then you still have a full-length album that is to come out later as well, which I might be able to vouch and say that also sounds amazing. Maybe I have that perspective.
Cool, thank you. I mean, this is the first time in my life that I have this situation that we're just starting basically, and we have already 2 albums ahead, like ready to be released, in the future. So, and we're also working on the like thinking of another. My father just came in here, and he's borrowing me this camera that I'm using, and I'm not using it. And he was just like, hey, it's not working.
All right. Yeah, we're not using that one. Please send my regards to him.
Cool. Yeah, but coming back is what I was trying to say is that it's a very good place that we're starting from, because we have these 2 materials to be promoted still, and it's been also already a year since we wrote Vanishing, so we are kind of getting ready and feeling ready to write new music already. So it's a good place that we're in, and there's good plans popping out, since we signed with Mystic Production, and we are working on that big album together, and we're doing our best, both sides, to make this happen. So that's awesome, and it looks like we were going to start playing outside of Poland finally as well. So, I don't want to be over positive, but it's kind of exciting on the day of release and everything, and just inhaling all that,
Yeah. When are you going to come to the UK?
I don't know. We're planning to do some festivals first abroad, because that's a good start to get recognition, but it's as you know for sure, it's not easy, it's the business is very strict, and you need to be assigned to certain booking agencies to perform on some festivals and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's a process, but we're not in a hurry. We're not rushing. So probably there's going to be a moment we're going to play in the UK for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I'll be there, that's for sure. So just to kind of, so this is a question I've been wanting to ask you, because so this is completely non-music related, okay? Just a little bit of a
Yeah,
heads
sure.
up there.
We always talk
And
more about other stuff than music. So.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I think the thing is that with music, I think that it's sort of like, I think we've talked enough about it, and I really think that if people want to check it out themselves, for them to go and just listen to the new music and just take it in. I highly recommend it. It's very, very unique, and the production is also super good. So I just recommend them to go check it out for themselves, and then maybe what we're saying here makes more sense. But on the back of that, what I want to talk to you about is, this is a personal question I want to ask you, and it's a very simple question, but then I want you to kind of run off with as much as you like, because you and I, we've spoken offline quite a bit. We've met in person quite a few times now. And obviously I know a little bit of your history, so I want to ask you the following question. As a man, what things did you learn from your grandfather?
Everything. Seriously,
Right.
I mean, there's so much of him, in my family home where I am right now. It's like my family is artistic and photography, and my father is a photographer, and my grandfather was, among other things, was a photographer. But there's so much stuff of him lying around. Let me look. I don't even have to get up. There's this like album
Right.
with his photographies. That's him.
Cool. That's awesome. Right.
Yeah, I mean, he was a character, and he was so many things. But for me, he was a lot like a father in a way, and taking care of me a lot, and spending time with me when I was a kid, and just taking me for these crazy bike rides that I was not having enough strength for and stuff like that. I had a BMX with no gears, and he had
Right.
a bike with the gears, and we were going 15 kilometers when I was 8 years old or something. So yeah, and I mean, he was an exceptional man, and sort of like like a, how you say it, uh, fuck, not an authority figure. No, how you call this? I mean, I was looking up to him, and
A
he was
role
always,
model.
yeah, a role model. That's the word. So yeah, he was also believing in me all the time. Always. He was the guy that bought me the first guitar,
Right.
and encouraged me to do what I feel. And I think that's the most important thing that he taught me, was that to never deny what I feel and what I want to do, because that's the only way you're going to be sort of feeling good in your life, like attached to your natural self. And
Good
so
advice.
that's why I also, as I mentioned before, I never played cover songs, and that was sort of because of him as well, because he was telling me, like, don't try to be someone else, just figure it out yourself. You don't have to play like somebody else. You can, if you want to learn something, then you learn something, but don't force it. So I was never a real guitar student. I was just hanging out with the guitar all day long and figuring it out myself. That's probably why in my compositions there's like this less is more approach. Sort of, not overdoing things, not showing off, because it's just not about that. So I was driven always about seeking, and finding myself, and probably that's also why I left Behemoth. But my grandfather was also the reason I I joined Behemoth.
Right. Okay.
He told me shortly before it happened, he was like, grandson, there's going to be a train passing by. It's going to slow down a little bit. It's going to be that train with your chance to start something, and you're going to be probably surprised and scared, but there's no time to think. Just jump on it. So at 17, I jumped on the Behemoth wagon, and did 2 albums and toured 4 years, and then I felt it's not me, and I felt I'm becoming someone else that I don't want to be, and so this was the most important thing, that is still with me, and it still keeps me going, I guess, because it always comes back to me every time I sort of start over writing something, or these words are just coming back, and that's what I do. I don't think when I write, and I I'm just being myself. If I feel bad, I feel bad, whatever. I'm not going to hide it, and if I don't want to play, I don't play. So yeah, but it's also, he was encouraging me to travel the world, and learn to communicate with people, and don't judge them, be interested, learn about history and culture, all kinds of stuff,
It's very progressive of him for a guy who, from my understanding, was in the military in Poland that many years ago. I think that's very good line of thinking.
He was never really in the military, because during the Second World War, he was like a teenager, but he was in the resistance. We had this like young teenage resistant groups, like of scouts.
Right. Okay.
That they were, during the occupation, they were the resistance, like this. I don't remember the name of them. They had a name actually, but him and his brothers were basically these teenage soldiers. You can call them. But then the war ended, and he was never a soldier again. And he was never feeling oppressed by the communist, period that happened after the whole Second World War. He found ways to travel the world, and and he was working on this tourist cruiser, the only tourist cruiser that was allowed to leave Poland in that time, and he was a photographer there, and so he was just traveling, all the Caribbeans and everywhere, like basically around the world, and I was always there when he was coming back or leaving, so he was always bringing me stuff. He was always showing me pictures and of this, or bringing a monkey from Madagascar or something. He brought a fucking monkey to Poland, and he was.
He brought the actual monkey from there. Oh shit!
He was walking probably with a monkey in on the streets of Gdynia, in the winter.
Wait, how the fuck did he get away with? How did he bring it on the plane? I'm guessing he flew.
It was not a plane. He was on the ship. It was this tourist ship,
What a wild man! I love it.
Yeah, man. He was doing. I mean, it was the touristic, like a cruiser. Like this. People go for vacation, and stuff. Just like in the 70s and 80s, so they were quite smaller, but it was not like a it was not made for transporting bigger stuff. But he managed to bring a car from Holland, I think, from the Netherlands, on the deck of that ship, which was completely not legal. But I guess in those days you could bribe anybody and just do all these things. And he had this talent of community. I mean, just he had this ability of connecting with people and making everybody fucking laugh their pants, and he was just like such an optimist and positive dude, and very strong as well, and he was into sports, and he was a gold medalist of 3,000 meters with hurdles in 1955. Right, okay. He had a gold medal, and that's also the beginning of 23 my life, because his number was 23 when he was getting the gold medal, And
I see.
before
Yeah.
before I found during the therapy, actually, I realized that, and I dug out some stuff, and I saw that. I was like, okay, well, 23, it's an interesting number, and there's a lot of background story to it. And it was just interesting that he had this peak moment of his sports career with that number as well. So why not use it? And it's also sort of like a tribute to him, me using that number uh, um, in relation to that success and who he was for me as well. So I'm basically I'm really for example, part of the graphic design on Vanishing consists photographs taken by my grandfather, because he was
Amazing.
such a great photographer as well. So we decided to use these photographs and keep his spirit alive.
That's beautiful, man. And so, let's say 3 things that you learned from him. Number one, maybe let's say be authentic, like he said to you, carve your own path, do your own thing.
Believe in yourself, and like work hard on what you want to achieve. Focus on it. Be a good person. Don't judge people. Don't be like all the fucking idiots around. Just if you don't want to talk to somebody, just don't talk to them. But but I mean, 3 things. So the third one would be what would be the third one?
So be authentic, be a good person, don't judge anyone.
He told me one crucial thing when I was 8. He woke me up at 4 a.m. He put me under a cold shower, and he was like, "We're going to the boulevard by the seaside. Gdynia is by the Baltic Sea, so it's like a walking distance, there." And he was like, "I'm gonna teach you how to make pictures of sunrise." And we went there, and it became a lesson of so much more, basically, because he was teaching me how to frame a picture, like how to compose, And he told me, "Grandson, the most important thing in life is composition. It doesn't matter if it's a good composition. It doesn't matter if it's a relationship or if it's a a song or a painting or a picture. It has to have balance, and the horizon can never be in the middle, like in the center. There has to be either that or that." And those like, and also he said, like, don't think twice when you take a picture. Don't think twice when you compose. Just like leave it, and come back to it and play it again. If you don't like it, then don't play it. But if you like something, just leave it there.
Don't think twice when you make a life decision. Just stick to it. See how it goes.
Kind of, our intuition knows better before we start overthinking or start having thoughts that are influenced by all sorts of things that are around us, that we grew up with, or that we kind of have in our day-to-day life. So yeah, I guess that's the third one.
That's powerful, man. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad I asked you about it.
Well, thank you for asking interesting questions.
Yeah, well, because I want to learn, and I think that last one that you pointed to is so fucking important, because I've been guilty of this in the past, and if there's one thing I've learned, I think especially as a man, because you're in charge, you're responsible for making decisions, and the decisions that you make will shape how your life is gonna go. And you can spend all day thinking about the butterfly effect of, oh, if I make this decision, this and this and this and this and this will happen. But then if I make this decision, this and this and this and this and this other thing will happen. And I am someone who, for a lot of my life, I've driven myself mad thinking, oh, well, time is limited, resources are limited, age is a thing, energy is a thing. How do I want to do this? Is this the right way or is this the right way? And the answer is there's, just choose your regrets is one of my favorite things that I heard. I think I heard it on Chris Williamson's channel, Modern Wisdom. He said something that someone said to him, choose your regrets. Because, of course, there will be some things that eventually in life you might regret. But what you want to do is, well, which is the thing that you definitely don't want to miss out on? Do you want to be in your deathbed thinking, oh, yeah, I never really released an album which I composed. I only played other people's stuff. Well, you can't tolerate that, so you better go and record your own fucking album and release it, and that kind of thing. Yeah,
that's why I took a break. When I didn't have anything to say musically, and I needed to heal, and and get to a point where actually I'm doing what I want, not what the group wants, and that's crucial because I didn't think. I just did the first step and wrote music, and the rest just happened. And of course there's always things that are surprising and just problematic, but you can't predict them. It's just like you have to do the step, and if you don't do that step, you're just living in a bubble, and you won't get anywhere, I guess.
The thing is as well, and I dare say that most of the time, if not all the time, we all know what the right thing to do is. But the thing that holds us back is fear. Oh, what if? Oh, what if? It's just like, I always come back to the example of how birds teach their offsprings how to fly. You just have to let it fucking jump off and fly, and in life you can't stand there thinking, oh, what if I fall off the tree? You just gotta fucking fly. If you drop down and hit your ass, then what's the worst that can happen? That's your rock bottom. Then you learn from it, but you have to jump, you have to fly. And there's nothing more tragic than a life spent, well, not flying. Just like I'm sure there's yeah, exactly. Like I'm sure there's a different reality where, I don't know, somewhere if you want to look into the multiverse theory, not saying it's 100% a thing, but if you want to say that's a thing, there's a different version of Mateusz that never really picked up the guitar or never got into that or never joined Behemoth or never started Blindead. And then just like that, I'm sure there could be a different version of me who never left Iran, quit music because it was dangerous to play it over there, and now is there with probably, I don't know, a wife and a kid or something, and a big fat belly in a car, probably working a good job, but absolutely hating every fucking minute of it. And I'm glad we chose to fly, and I hope that whoever's listening to this right now, whatever that decision is, whatever it is that you want to fucking do, that deep down you should do it, but the only thing that's holding you back is fear. I hope you fucking go for it, and just make sure you got enough resources to back it up. But fucking go for it. Don't hold back. Time. Yeah,
just know that there's no way to plan this as well. You can't predict how it's going to go, but you have to let it go. You have to let it happen. If you make the first step and then you have to make the second, and you're going to make it happen. If you want to make something happen, it will eventually get there.
Absolutely, man. Mateusz, brother, this has been an absolutely brilliant conversation, man. I thank you so much for coming back on the
Likewise,
podcast.
Man.
Yeah.
Likewise, thank you so much as well, man.
Absolutely. No, absolutely, the pleasure's mine, man. I've been looking forward to you coming back on here. Obviously, like I said, we've been talking a lot, off the camera and whatnot anyway, but it's good to kind of do it in this setting, and of course, really pleased and happy for everything that's happening for Blindead 23 at the moment. and I'm excited to see what's gonna come of the band, and I hope that it will get you basically the response that you want, because it's very organic art, and I hope people, if there's one piece of advice I can give, is regardless of what sort of specific genres or whatever people are into, approach Blindead 23 with an open heart and no expectations, and don't try and pin it down to a label or a specific genre. Just listen to it for what it is and just take it in as the expression of raw emotions that it is.
Definitely, and I just you took that one sentence out of my mouth, because I just wanted to say, like, I don't have expectations when it comes to what we just put out, and I'm not overthinking too much what people write. It's not what I did, why I did it. And I used to have that when I was younger, because of excitement. It was just like, to hear what people think. But now I know, of course, I'm interested in what they think, but I don't have expectations where this will take us, and that's a big difference from my past experience with my career. So that's a crucial thing that changed in my life, that I just do my best, and I don't have expectations how far it will get me.
Absolutely. That's actually really important, because I think that when you do something, you got to do it for the love of it as well. When you have too many expectations, oh, I want it to be this, I want it to become that, I want to have this many streams, I want to have this many followers, I want to have this many things, I want to have this gig, this headline, this and that.
Or I want people to interpret it in this way.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
No,
you can't.
Music is personal, and it came out of me from a different reason, probably, and people will take it, in a different, because of a different reason as well. Like, it will, usually it's a lot of different perspectives on, what it is actually.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And yeah, the more I think you're honest about it, if it's gonna make a difference, it'll be a ripple effect. It won't be like how you expected it or how you want it. But if you just do it because you love it, you'll get exactly out of it what you're meant to get out of it. That's another important one. But yeah. Anyway, man, this has been a blast of a chat. Thank you so much for coming on here. And yeah, I highly recommend everyone to check out Vanishing, your recent release, and I'll be sure to link it here in the description and whatnot. People can go check it out for themselves. And yeah, as always, to everyone who's been listening, thank you for joining us in Iblis Manifestations. Hope you like this one. We'll see you on the next one.